Hello again, .NET developers. In this video, I'll show you how to install Subversion and VisualSVN, tools to let you easily use version control with the programs you write. I highly suggest you use version control when you program. If you work with other programmers, it helps prevent one programmer from overwriting another programmer's changes, and if you're working alone, it's still very useful. You can save a working version of your program before you make changes. Then, if the changes break the program, version control lets you roll back or revert your changes to back when the code was working. There are many different version control programs, but I'll show you the ones I use, Subversion, and in my next video, GitHub. So let's start the installations. Open up your browser and go to the TortoiseSVN link that will be in the description below. This is the version of Subversion that I like to use. It includes a client app that makes it easier to use version control with Windows Explorer. Here on the download page you have a 32-bit OS version and a 64-bit OS version. About the only time I see Windows 32-bit is with a tablet, so you probably have 64-bit. Just save the installer. And when the download is finished, then run it. It's pretty easy. Just click next, 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 install, and it will install in a few seconds. The next thing I install is VisualSVN. This lets me use Subversion inside of Visual Studio. So go to the link for this, which will be in the description also, and download it. And then run it. Accept the license agreement. Install it for whichever versions of Visual Studio you have. And then click Finish. That's all it takes. VisualSVN does have a commercial license that you're required to pay for if you're using this on a company network. So you may want to look at SVN, which is another source control plugin for Subversion inside of Visual Studio. I just like VisualSVN, that's the one I normally use and I'm used to it. Now we'll see how it works inside a solution. I opened up a sample solution I have here, and if you notice up here in the menu of Visual Studio, we now have a VisualSVN option, which lets you access it. You can also access it through the Solution Explorer in the upper right hand corner of Visual Studio. You see here the solution shows the files that are in it. If I right click on the solution, I now have an option, Add Solution to Subversion. I'm going to click that. It shows me the folder for my solution, C Projects Desktop Workbench. And I say I'm going to create a new repository that's a place to store the different versions of my project. Click Next. I like to have the repository location inside a repositories directory, and I like to have it so the directory structure matches my project directory structure. So I'm going to change it to C Repositories Desktop Workbench and click Next. This gives me a confirmation screen and I click Import. So the solution was successfully added to Subversion, and now I click Finish. If you look over in Solution Explorer now, you'll see there's a yellow circle next to all these files. That means those files are marked to go into the repository, but they haven't been put in yet, or they've had changes made to them. So I'm going to add them for the first time by right-clicking on the solution and selecting Commit. I can make a note here. I'll just say initial version, and it shows me all the files that are going to go in. Click OK. It shows me the files were moved to the repository. Click OK, and now there's a green circle next to all these files. So I know that the current version that I'm working with is also the latest version in the repository. If you're making a change, we can go into this form, and I'll just add a new line. So now we see the form has a yellow circle next to it because it's changed. The project has a yellow circle next to it because one of the files in that project has changed, and the solution has a yellow circle next to it because one of the projects in that solution has changed. If the change was bad, I can right-click on the file and scroll down to Revert Changes. When I click that, it will show me the form that was modified. I can even double-click it, and it will show me the source code that's in the version control and the source code that's in my working copy, and I can see the difference. Click OK and OK, and now it's removed that line. So now I'm back to the previous version. This is really handy when you're making big changes. You can make a small part of the change, test your program, commit that to the source code repository, make another small part of the change, and keep doing that. So that way you don't have 100 changes and you're not sure which one broke the build. That's the basics of installing Subversion using TortoiseSVN and the VisualSVN plugin for Visual Studio.